Is this thing on? Hi guys, my name is Abby and this is the Just Flip It podcast. Welcome back. Last week I mentioned Smiths and how profits were up. However, funnily enough, this week's talk is going to be about Smiths and the fact that actually they were trending because they were named the worst shop on the high street. Yes, can you believe that? A shop that has made considerable amount of profit this year that has also been named the worst shop. And the reason being is because people thought and have said that they've experienced a poor in-store experience and service. They claim that the shops are tatty and old and cramped and messy. This shop, in addition to Homebase and Sports Direct, were named one of the worst. However, on the flip side, you have shops such as Richer Sounds, the travel equipment chain Rohan, and John Lewis receiving 89, 87 and 86% respectively. So they were deemed as the best shops on the high street. So there's also this question and there's this ongoing concern about the high street and the future of the high street. And I'm thinking to myself, what are these shops doing and what can they do to encourage people to go out and buy? Because at the moment, most of the shopping and things like that are done online. Yeah, it's a question that will continue to rumble on. The next article that caught my eye was the Fenty clothing launch. In the past week, Rihanna has launched her Fenty clothing line, so the pop star has now turned into a beauty and fashion mogul. The new high-end clothing and accessories line was launched with LVMH, the conglomerate that owns Louis Vuitton and Dior, and they are underwriting this venture. So this is the second brand in history that LVMH has built from the ground up. And from what I can see, Rihanna doesn't just dive in head first with ventures. She tests and tries them to make sure that they're appropriate for the market. She's done this by wearing her prototype. So over the years, we didn't know at the time, but she was trying the clothing out in addition to the beauty. So you can see in the numerous articles about her and galas that you've seen her being photographed in. She also has done this alongside launching a successful beauty and lingerie line. So Rihanna is just proof that one shouldn't solely just rest on one source of income. I mean, everyone knows her as a world-class pop star, but now she's a true mogul. She is becoming a true mogul in every sense of the word. So yeah, well done, Rihanna. And the final article that caught my eye, so I'm not trying to start anything, I'm prefixing this right here, right now, but this thing that I came across really spoke to me, and it's something that I saw on the 29th of May on my Twitter feed, and it was about the BBC's use of a slogan that had been trademarked for a popular book about uplifting black women, and this book is called Slay in Your Lane. The BBC used the title for their sports campaign, which was a rip-off, and an eagle-eyed fan alerted one of the authors. So this type of thing, the use of a trademark and BBC's blatant disregard for a trademark, is something that isn't surprising to me in the slightest. Yomi Adegoke, one of the authors, details the scenario beautifully in her opinion piece for The Guardian. So how they thought they can get away with this without the members of the public knowing, I don't know. I would even go as far as to call it disrespect. We as black people regularly experience issues akin to the one that she is recalling. If it isn't a large agency co-opting or plagiarizing something that we've worked on, then it's something else. When we call it out, we get called aggressive, angry. They even described her as bullying them, or that she's acting in a manner of a bully, which is completely absurd. On the whole, these scenarios go largely unheard of, so I thank Yomi and Elizabeth for bringing it to our attention, and just that people need to be a lot more mindful about how they operate in this social media sphere and how larger organizations can in effect use your shit. So this was a stand not just for small businesses but for women and black women at that. The last thing I want to speak about is in England on the 1st of June 2019, the Tenant Fees Act will come into force, bringing an end to upfront fees charged by landlords or agents. This has been ongoing for the past half a year, I would say, maybe more. And it's a big thing in the industry. Those that rent know it, landlords know it. It's something that we don't know what the effects will be. I did hear that they had done it in Scotland from 2012, but landlords and agents can no longer charge admin fees or fees to prospective tenants. This will therefore mean that tenants have more money in their pocket, shall we say, when they first move in. The problem with this, and a number of people have noted this, is that if that were to happen, these landlords will need to recoup things such as referencing costs, credit check costs, so they're likely to do that by increasing the rents they charge the tenant. Well, not all of them, but some may do that. So I don't know how beneficial this actual act is. If I just give you a quick rundown of what landlords can no longer charge tenants, they are referencing, credit checks, inventories, assessing guarantors, services such as cleaning and gardening, and admin costs. Only charges that will be allowed are the replacement of a lost key or for a security device, and the charge on rent payments are at least 14 days late. Like I said, this is a big thing, and I think we all need to watch this space because we don't know the ramifications of what's going to happen. It will come out shortly. On this part of the pod, I'm going to be talking about buy-to-lets. I think I sort of took it for granted. On my previous episodes, I thought that everyone knew what they were. But then I was thinking to myself in the last couple of days, maybe not everyone knows what that is. So a buy-to-let is where you buy an asset with the purpose of renting it out. In this case, because this is a property podcast, you buy a property with the sole purpose of renting it out and generating income from the rent, or in other words, rental income. This is probably the most traditional or common property investing route that people within the sector use. So you would often hear people refer to it, and they always talk about people needing to understand the basics. And when they say the basics, they refer to buy-to-lets. When you're doing this strategy, typically you can get a buy-to-let mortgage, and you can get these if you want to invest in a house. You can get this if you can afford to take or want to take the risk. And if you earn a certain amount, then you are probably eligible to get buy-to-let mortgage. So the amount that you typically need to earn is anything from £25,000 upwards. And you also need to have good credit. Credit is very important. Anywhere you go, anything that you do, people will always look at your credit history. So if you don't have that one up to par, I would say the first thing to do is look at your outgoings, okay, let me take a step back because I've known instances where people have messed up their credit all because they didn't pay a phone bill. So make sure that you pay your stuff on time, and make sure that if you put stuff on your credit card that you pay it off on time, because all of these will count against you. So when it's time to buy a property and you sit down with a broker, if you choose to use one, they will go through all of this. So credit is life. If you get one of these mortgages, if you are not a cash buyer, typically you'll need 25% of the property value for the deposit. Most of these mortgages tend to be interest only, where you only pay the interest on the loan, and then afterwards you pay the original loan in full at the end of the term. Typically, they range from anything from 25 years upwards. Don't panic, 25 years, I know it seems like a long time, but loads of things can happen in your property journey where you may not even reach that 25 years. You may sell the house, you may move on. So if the deal is right, I would say go for it, irrespective of how many years you have left to pay it off, unless you're 55 years old. And then that could work against you. Well, 55 years as an example. And the reason I use an age like that is because if you're trying to take out a 25-year mortgage and you're 55, you'll be 80, but you may have retired before then. So the bank will look at how are you able to pay back the mortgage, which in effect is a loan. That's why I use an age like that. I think I might have done this earlier, but I'm just going to go through the pros and cons of this investment strategy. The pros are it generates an income, and you meet your mortgage repayments. There's long-term investment and growth within this depending on where you have bought the property. South tends to work better over a period of time. The capital appreciation is greater than in the north per se, but the north is cheaper to purchase. And you can offset the costs against tax. The downside to this strategy is the cost of an empty property. So you will need to make the mortgage payments from your own pocket if you don't have a tenant. You also have to pay more stamp duty on a second home. This really came into effect in 2016, where the Chancellor at the time was like, I'm cutting you guys off now. You can't be making extra money like this and taking all the housing stock. So the government decided to impose this to make it harder for people to buy second properties. There is also the cost of finding tenants. Sometimes this could be in a matter of weeks, sometimes it could take months. My advice to anyone would be, don't just look at the first tenant. Listen to your gut. If your gut's telling you that this person is going to give you problems, 9 times out of 10 your gut is right and they probably will give you problems. So you have to make sure you get the right person in. There are many other pros and cons, but overall what I will say is if you're able to overcome the cons, this is a fantastic strategy for you to make a lot of money. So yeah, that's it. If you have any questions, please email me on flipitpod@gmail.co.uk. Please rate, review and subscribe. Until next time, thank you.